Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a very, very special guest, also known as my fiancé. This is Devlin. Devlin,
Hello.
say hi.
Hello.
Today we are going to be talking about Devlin's favorite book that he does not stop talking about. It's one of the only books that he reads. He's been trying to get me to read it many times. I've started it many times and have yet to finish it. I've made it like 50 pages in, but today he's going to be talking about it and telling you why he likes it. So let's just get right into it. We have a dog watching us from the window, if he can be seen.
Alfredo.
That is our dog, Alfredo. But yeah. So Devlin, tell us what your favorite book is.
American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
And why is it your favorite book?
American Gods is one of those stories that is a fairly complex story with multiple moving parts at once. When you read it for the first time, there are these bits where Neil Gaiman puts in that don't have much to do with the actual story up until the very end. There are these side plots with all these different gods that go on for a bit way too long when you first read them, and you're a bit confused as to why they matter until you get to the very end and it all clicks in your head. And that's just one of the many reasons why I find this book very compelling. The characters are very interesting and well-rounded. The plot, that be it a bit complicated to understand at first, once you get to a certain point in the story, everything starts to make sense. And it's like a mystery book. It's a murder mystery, it's a road trip, it's all these different genres mixed into one big book.
And can you just kind of briefly explain the plot or like summarize the book? No spoilers, but just a brief explanation.
The main character, Shadow Moon, is released from prison. He's released a few days early after a family accident. I won't reveal what it is, even though it is not really a spoiler because it's a driving part of the book. So he is on his way home early after being released from prison, and he runs into this man called Mr. Wednesday, who basically hires him as a bodyguard or a spy, whatever Wednesday wants him to be. And for a while, you wonder who Mr. Wednesday is because he's got this charming demeanor to him, but he's very much mean, angry, old, grouchy man, until he reveals himself to be a god, Odin, from Norse mythology. And he reveals that basically all of these gods that we've been led to believe in, like, over all these years, they exist. Like Jesus, the Christian god, the Norse mythology, Greek mythology, all of these gods exist. But all of these gods exist, and they exist on faith. And people who believe in these gods, that's what they kind of feed on, in a sense. And there's a war going on between the old gods, which is like the Norse mythology, the Greek mythology, all of these gods, and the new gods, which is stuff like technology and cars and television, all of this stuff. And they're fighting over competition of who wants to believe in them, because nobody wants to believe in the old gods anymore. Everyone wants to believe in everything new. And Shadow is put in the middle of all that, and he has to pick a side and figure out who to fight for.
Well, that was a very detailed summary.
It's a very detailed story.
Might have actually finally convinced me to give another crack at it. Maybe that'll be my next book review. Look out for that one. So, I know it's your favorite book. I know you've read it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
What got you into reading it the first time? Like, how did you find it? How did you come across it the first time that got you into the book itself?
You know that my mom is very heavily into books and all of that. She read this book a long time ago, and she's been trying to get me to read it for a while. But at one point we got Audible, and I used the free credit to get American Gods because I was very intrigued by the cast of characters that were portrayed in the audiobook, because they had a whole cast. Each character was voiced by a different person, and it had a very nice narrator which had a very calm and soothing voice, and it was very compelling. It was like listening to a movie almost. And for me, it's hard to read books because like sitting there, I get distracted by things in my mind. So having something to listen to made it easier to listen to, or easier to pay attention to, rather. And once I started listening to it, I didn't stop. I was listening to it for hours at a time, and eventually I finished it in a very short amount of time.
So you mentioned that it sounds like when you were listening to the Audible version, it sounded like you were listening to a movie while reading a book. So I know that American Gods has been made into a TV show. I would like to hear your thoughts on said TV show.
The Starz version of American Gods made into a TV. I was very excited when I heard about it. It is not good. It is very, very not good. The story is warped and manipulated in such weird ways. The first few episodes are...
We have a dog watching us again.
The first few episodes are, for the most part, mostly concurrent with the book. But after a few episodes, it starts to go completely off the rails, and it feels like they completely just disregarded the source material. The TV show, it becomes its own thing after a while. One of the main characters in the book, she's more of a side character. She becomes a main character in the story, and it basically becomes half of the episodes are all about her. And it's not supposed to be about her. It's supposed to be about Shadow's adventure and his whole plot and where he fits in this story and where he fits in the world. And it doesn't focus on that in the show. They come up with new stories and plot lines that just don't make sense. They put in characters where they weren't in the book. They make up new characters that weren't in the book. There's this whole episode dedicated to one of Odin's old friends who is like a god of... He's not even a god of war. He's the god of bullets. And he's in between old and new. He's actually played by the guy who played Sean's dad.
On Psych, yeah. Corbin Benson?
I think so. He's
one of our favorite TV shows.
And he does a great job at that character, but that character serves no point because they weren't in the book. And it goes off the rails. One of the main characters you meet later in the book is called Anansi. He is the god of spiders.
And that's a reference to a different Neil Gaiman book, Anansi Boys,
which is also a very good book. But the person who played him, there was some very controversial stuff that went on at the time, and they fired him, but they continued to do the show. And you can't have American Gods without Anansi because he becomes such a main character near the second half of the book. And I stopped watching the show about halfway through season 2 because it wasn't American Gods anymore. It was its own thing.
And that can bring up a much larger question of how we turn books into movies, which will also possibly be a different video at some point if you would like to join me again for that. With that being said, do you have anything else you would like to add or like to say to the people?
I highly recommend American Gods to anyone who's looking for a new book. It is a bit of a read, and it is a bit confusing in your first time, but once you reread it a couple of times, it becomes such an amazing story, and the characters are really compelling, and I cannot recommend the book enough. The TV show, on the other hand, not so much.
Alright, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
If you've watched my YouTube channel before, you would know that at the end of every video that I do, I ask a question. I also answer that question. Today I will be asking you to answer that question, so you're going to get thrown on the spot there. And this time's question is going to be, what is your favorite flower?
My favorite flower?
Your favorite flower. And I can answer while I give you time to think. My favorite flower is daffodils. I've been seeing them around campus a lot lately, and it's been making me very happy. I will put a picture right here of one of the pictures I took of the daffodils on campus. And what is your favorite flower?
On the spot, I would have to pick sunflowers because of Van Gogh. Thank you. Vincent Van Gogh's depiction of sunflowers. He found them a little bit complex, but he decided to paint them anyway.
And I will put a picture of that right here too if you don't know what we're talking about. Although I feel like most people,
It's a very famous painting.
yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about based on that, then you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you all have a beautiful and wonderful day.